Welcome to Milk Market Tidbit for the March Dairy Products Report that USDA released yesterday afternoon. This is Dr. Lawrence Jones, and I'm recording this on Thursday, May the 7th around noon. So the Dairy Products Report ties everything together for a month, and I thought we'd just kind of start with revisions. So cheese production for February was revised up. Cold storage basically was not. Butter cold storage was revised up, and butter production was revised up. So overall, there was more product around in February than we had originally thought. Now, the actual numbers for cheese production were lower than what the actual had projected, and also lower than what StoneX had. And for butter production, they were lower than what the typical would be, as well as what the StoneX would be. Now, there are two numbers on this slide that have me kind of scratching my head. And this is the one here, which is the cheese to milk ratio. You can kind of think of that as 10 pounds of milk onto a pound of cheese, which means that about 61.7% of the milk was used to make cheese. This hasn't been in the 61 for quite a while. So a year ago, February, or the typical. And the other is the amount of fat that butter represents. It's been running close to 22. 21.6, and here we are at 20.8. So it looks like both cheese and butter production were probably underreported relative to the amount of milk we had. And remind ourselves that milk came up about 1% month over month, while cheese actually dropped close to 2.4%, and butter actually dropped almost 6%. So again, it did not follow up with the amount of milk that we had. So I'll plot all this out. Here are the daily cheese numbers. The red dots are March. So we've been on this big upward trend, and then we broke it. But this March that we have just reported is the highest March on record. So again, cheese production may have been down. And you see that this point here is coming down, where to this point it was going up. And so there's very few times when we go into March going down. And so again, I think this is really a big question. And when I had projected the cheese production off of about 10 years of history, this point is actually significantly different than that projection. So again, this would suggest that there is something statistically different on that data point. American cheese has been, very much on this upward trend. We did kind of start coming down in 2023. And this production that we had in March is not the highest in March. In fact, it's probably more representative of 2022, somewhere in there. So we've really curtailed the amount of American cheese that we're making. Cheddar cheese is the one that pays the bills. So this has been on a very much an upward trend, and this March would be representative of that 23 kind of number also. So again, we've definitely curtailed this starting in 2023. We're still on a bit of an upward trend, but we're way off of that long-term trend. Italian cheese is a little bit different. Here's our long-term trend. We're not that far off of it. We came down in 2023. And then we've been on basically a parallel path ever since. And that March number that we printed is the highest March on record for Italian cheese. Dry whey is an interesting animal here because it's been very much on a downward trend. But whey recently on the spot market has been under pressure, and that's because we're making more than we've made in quite a while. So that is a growing production of whey, even though on a long-term trend it's looking like it's going down. Now, butter production has very much been on a long-term trend up. We picked up a new gear here in 2024, and we're making more butter than we ever had. And this butter production we printed in March is the highest March we ever had for butter production. So again, butter production is continuing to be strong. However, though, when I put together my expected butter production, it is off of this trend line and with a p-value basically saying that is statistically different. So again, I think there's something a little bit different than the number that we printed here. Now, the thing that's getting all the attention in milk pricing right now is non-fat dry milk, because we've got the spot market at $2.29. We really sort of seen this coming back here in 2023 when we reduced the amount of non-fat dry milk we're making, because we really came off that long-term trend. And the number that we've printed now is up significantly from the last 2 years. But it really is kind of representative of what we had back here in 2017. Ice cream production came up a little bit, and so our long-term trend has been slightly down. The short-term trend is a lot more down, but again, we're above that short-term trend. And this is the time of year where we take more cream and make it into ice cream. Yogurt production is continuing to go up, kind of made a gear shift here in 2024. And this is continuing to be a very popular product. And the one that's extremely popular is cottage cheese, and this is continuing to go up also. That gear change was also back here, shortly after 2023. And so we've got 3 years of continuing going up. And the real big question is, did ice cream, non-fat dry milk, yogurt, and cottage cheese make up for that milk that's probably missing out of cheese and butter? And I don't know if that's enough to make up that difference. So this week we had the global dairy trade and the March exports. Global dairy trade was up, but cheese was down. March exports showed cheddar at $1.83. And then we had the national dairy sales report and the dairy products. We're going to go into a little bit of dark zone because our biggest data is going to be coming out on the 22nd, but we will have the statistical uniform prices next week. So that will be the next milk market tidbit.